Hi, Aurora.
Hello.
Can you remind me what grade are you in?
Fifth.
Fifth grade, okay. So we're doing a fifth grade science lesson today.
Okay.
We've been studying food webs and talking about the components of a food chain recently. So can you remember some of the components in a food chain?
There's decomposers, producers, and consumers.
Okay, perfect. Did we get more in? I mean, you can use the anchor chart if you need to, but do you remember what the animals are called that would be the first thing to eat plants?
Herbivores?
Yeah. Awesome. Primary, or they're also known as primary consumers. So herbivores, they have that word herb in there. That's helpful. They eat plants. What could be next in the food chain? What might eat an herbivore or a primary consumer?
An omnivore or carnivore.
Okay. Yeah, so we got secondary consumers, omnivores. Good, I'm glad you remembered that. You remembered that from your actual lesson, didn't you? Nice. Tertiary consumers. Tertiary is like
Big.
third. Carnivores. Yeah. Primary is first, secondary, and tertiary just mean third. Third level. Consumers would be carnivores, and they just eat meat. So you have your anchor chart there from the last time, so from the lessons we've been doing. And you said decomposers. They're the ones that do what?
They're the ones that break down the matter of the consumers.
Yeah.
And feed it to the producers.
Yeah. So the cycle goes around again. The sunlight gives energy to the plants or the producers. And then what happens?
Then the consumers eat the producers.
Then the consumers what?
Eat the producers.
Uh-huh. Consuming them. Alright, so you remembered that there's 3 different kinds of consumers too, so that's awesome. Well, now that we've activated your prior knowledge, we're also going to do a little refresher by watching a video. This will also help you remember some things, so.
Hey, kid!
What?
Did you know you're the top of the food chain?
Huh?
Yeah, you know, top dog. Numero uno. The top of the food chain.
Uh-huh. The left on the bottom.
Gross.
Funny you should ask. Food chains don't start at the top. They begin at the bottom. No, not that bottom. They actually begin here. Sunlight is energy, and energy is what all living things need to survive. So the food chain is how energy moves through nature. Basking in the sun is how plants convert energy into food, and lots of animals eat plants, even you. So when an animal eats some plants, that energy moves from the plant to the animal. And when that animal gets eaten by another animal, yummy, the energy moves again. Even a dead animal still passes energy. Dead salmon, anyone?
You.
Insects, bacteria, and other creepy crawlers like these maggots will feed on a fish carcass. Other fish feed on the insects,
Bug!
and bears will eat those fish, and so on. Also, how many of you use fertilizer in your garden? Bat poop is the best fertilizer around, and it's mostly insect parts. And think about other fertilizer like cow manure. It's really just digested plants.
This
So fertilizers
is this
help
video
plants to
gross
grow.
enough for you?
The plants then convert energy from the sun into food by using photosynthesis. This makes plants producers. The animal that eats the plant is called the consumer. A tree like this that produces acorns is a producer. This squirrel eating the acorn is the primary consumer. But watch out! A secondary consumer, like this red-tailed hawk, may eat the squirrel who ate the acorn.
Huh?
Well, it's kind of like a hamburger.
At
Flint, this is a sloppy Joe.
Okay, who's the secondary consumer? You. The cow ate the grass, and you're eating the cow.
Really?
But just like you, animals don't always clean up their plates. That's where scavengers come in. Scavengers like this vulture are nature's cleanup crew. You could say they clean up the leftovers, taking the energy from dead animals to power themselves. You may have a scavenger in your house.
But I don't have a vulture in my house.
Well, say your mom produces some cookies. Then she would be the producer. If she gave you a plate full of oatmeal raisin cookies,
Thanks, Mom.
you would be the primary consumer.
Hey, what do you call these guys stealing my cookies?
Yeah, well, they would be the secondary consumers. And don't forget Fido. See, you do have a scavenger in the house. What we just showed is a simple food chain. But think about all the food chains going on all the time around you. Take something pretty common like a spider. This one is eating a grasshopper. How many other animals want to eat the spider? Birds, other spiders, lizards, frogs, or toads, or even mammals like mice or shrew. Then think about what's going to eat each of those animals, even dead animals. This is how food chains interconnect and create a food web. So where do you fit in? At each step, you can be a primary consumer, a secondary consumer, a scavenger, and someday when you're really old and die, you even get to be the producer. It's the web of life.
What do you think about that video?
I think it was focused on poop a lot.
I think they were trying to appeal to a lot, like maybe what a lot of food, a lot of fifth graders would be attracted to, possibly.
I think anybody in my class would laugh at that.
Well,
Maybe
it's
third
good to
grade.
get your feedback. As a fifth grader, you might be a little old for that video. So, since I'm working, I don't have my own smart board. I'm working with what I have here. So, a food web, because animals can really eat a lot of different things. The food chain has many different overlapping parts. So, that would be a food web. Here's an example. Be patient with me because as I said, I do not have a smart board, so I'm trying to project this from my phone onto the TV. So thank you. Not ideal, but in the classroom it would be a little faster. Okay. Right, there's the sun. That's where everybody gets there. Okay, so in my original lesson plan, if I was doing this with the whole class, I would give everybody one of those pictures and call people up by group, like producers, primary consumers. Okay.
Secondary consumers. Scavengers.
Since I just have you, I was going to ask you to go through and help me classify these. So, what do you think grass, where would grass go?
Could be a producer.
Okay. Chipmunk?
Primary consumer.
Yeah. Or herbivore. Crops?
Producer.
Squirrels?
Consumer.
Let's see. A snake.
Consumer. Most likely a carnivore.
Okay. Mouse?
Consumer.
But, like,
Omnivore.
on the food chain, it would be... I don't...
Primary consumer?
I think they would be primary, yeah. A raccoon. Now, raccoons...
Would they be primary or secondary?
Raccoons are omnivores. So that would make them a secondary.
Yeah.
Okay. What about a bullfrog?
Tertiary consumer?
A bullfrog?
Yeah.
Could they be an omnivore? What do you think?
Frogs aren't omnivores. Right?
Yeah, they are.
Well, then secondary consumer.
Yeah. And a bullfrog would be eating insects, not just plants. So, grasshopper?
Consumer. Primary consumer.
Yep. Herbivore. A weasel. That's a tricky one.
Secondary consumer.
Actually, it would be considered a carnivore. If we go back to our... Normally, if I had an anchor chart, it would be up on the wall and visible to everyone, but that's our anchor chart. What about a bobcat? If you were a bobcat.
Tertiary consumer.
Yep, definitely carnivore. A mountain lion?
Tertiary consumer.
An eagle.
Tertiary consumer.
Yeah. Eagles are definitely carnivores. Yeah. We have our scavengers, too, like coyotes and dogs and wolves. They're carnivores, mostly, sometimes omnivores, but they're scavengers, so they're kind of opportunistic. Now, an Indian pipe,
Is a deconsumer.
that's a decomposer.
Or decomposer.
What about a mushroom?
A decomposer.
Okay. So I think did you have any questions about any of these animals or plants?
I did not think that frogs were omnivores.
Well, yeah,
I
if you
thought they
think,
just had a main diet of bugs.
yeah. But really, if you eat bugs, are you an herbivore if you eat bugs? That's a good point.
They're carnivores because
It also says
bugs aren't.
that they can eat small fish, earthworms, and grasshoppers. So that's
Yeah,
why
but
they're
they're-
considered omnivores or a secondary consumer, because
But they don't eat like veggies and fruits and grass and stuff. They don't eat herbs.
I think they probably could eat plants too. But if they're considered an omnivore, that means they're eating both plants and animals. So yeah, I usually think about frogs eating flies. That's kind of I don't know. That's a good question because sometimes the distinction can be tricky. So why don't we make a few food chains, and I'll show you this website while we're doing it that can help us out. Oh, sorry. You guys can use that to help me out. So if I put in, sorry, like I said again, I don't have a smart board, so I have to, this is something, if you guys are making your own food webs, you can use, this website's called What Eats. So it'll pretty much tell you if you're confused about what eats what. And okay, it's giving me the mobile version, so I'm gonna look this up on my computer. Hey, sometimes technology doesn't always cooperate with us during a lesson, does it? Okay, so give me an example of something that we can make for our class, like a class food chain, where we could start.
We could start at grass.
Okay, what eats grass? I don't have my caps lock on, but it looks like when you do it. Well, that's interesting. Maybe it's only about animals. Okay, I guess we can only do animals. So we'll start off, you suggested grass. Okay. Well, what might eat? Okay, we start with the sun too, because that feeds the grass. What might feed, or what might eat the grass?
Cow.
Okay. So what, now we got cow. What might eat a cow? Alright, it tells me, it will tell me what does a cow eat too, so you can go backwards. Okay, so wolves and grizzly bears would be the main animals that would attack them in North America. So if we're doing a, and then in Asia, wolves and tigers kill and eat cows from time to time. So should we go with wolves or grizzly bear?
Wolves.
Well, we'll just say one wolf.
Because they eat
for
them
now.
in many places.
Okay, so that doesn't leave us with an omnivore. Something in between, does it?
Well, wolves can be omnivores.
Okay, let's say wolves are omnivores. That's true. I guess they could be. Alright, so what would eat a wolf? And it says, generally speaking, the wolf is the top dog in its ecosystem. That means that while wolves will try to eat almost any other animal that crosses their path, from the largest to the smallest, almost nobody gets to eat them, at least not while they're alive. But there's one exception. Ooh. A large grizzly will sometimes dig up a mother wolf's den and eat the wolf cubs. And very occasionally, when a grizzly fights and kills a grown wolf, it will eat the wolf carcass. So, unlikely, unless, for the most part, but a grizzly bear could eat a wolf.
Yeah, so I'm glad we didn't do just grizzlies before, because
Okay.
there's obviously not much that eats grizzlies.
So you can see, I'm going to label my food chain here. Producer, primary consumer, or herbivore. The wolf is what?
The omnivore and the secondary consumer.
Okay. That was a hard one because the wolf is pretty tough, but that's why this website is cool, because you can, consumer or omnivore, and wolves being scavengers, they'll eat a lot of stuff, won't they? Our dog's not a wolf, but he'll eat lettuce, won't he? Which is funny, I think.
Carrots and tomatoes and oranges.
Yeah, I've never seen a dog that loved vegetables so much, but he's a good example of an omnivore. That dogs or canines can be omnivores. Alright. And then, what is our grizzly bear? Let's label him.
The tertiary consumer or the carnivore.
Yep. Nice job with helping me with the labels, lady. Okay. Like I said, when I'm doing a whole group lesson or with a group of kids, I might not call on you so much, so you're really helping me out here by being my only student. So we have that labeled, and I'm gonna ask you on your own to do something like this. Another resource that I have given you a link to in a doc. Do you want to go ahead and open up this doc that I shared with you? Probably normally I give people the option of doing it on paper, but that gives you a link to whateats.com, and then this website. I'm going to open it up and before you get started, if you want to look at this with me. This gives you more information about food webs and gives you some examples. Now, I don't want you to do exactly the food webs that you see in here, but they're giving you a detailed drawing of a food web. If you would like to make pictures or include clip art with your food web or food chain, you can do that. But I need you to have these elements for sure. You're going to have the sun for energy. You're going to have a producer. You're going to have a primary consumer or an herbivore. You're going to have a secondary consumer or an omnivore. And you're going to have a tertiary consumer or a carnivore. So you're going to make your own food chain or food web. They're giving you some examples where this is a food web where there's several different kinds of producers. There's
different kinds of consumers.
There's different kinds of consumers that are primary, like a rabbit and a mouse. All the way down to the I'm sorry, I forgot about the decomposers.
Oh yeah, when you're a decomposer. What should a decomposer be?
Yeah, for our group decomposer, what would happen to a grizzly bear when he... Could we say that, like, a mushroom?
Yeah.
What else could be a decomposer for a grizzly bear?
Bacteria.
Okay.
Or worms.
Yeah. So bacteria, we'll call that a decomposer. 8.
Also, a scavenger would probably try to...
But a decomposer is different. Cause
yeah, but a scavenger would probably come in and pick apart the...
Yeah.
Grizzly bear.
And you can stick a scavenger in there. That's not necessary, but you can stick a scavenger in there, like a scavenger bird or something like that. But you'd probably have some there are some examples on here of scavengers. But the components I need in your food chain or food web are at least one producer, at least one primary consumer, one secondary consumer, one tertiary consumer, and a decomposer.
Okay. And
put the sun somewhere in there because that is a part of the energy flow. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you've got the What Eats website and you've got this website that will give you some ideas about the energy flow if you get confused. And then you have access to the food chain anchor chart as well. So those are some resources you can use. So on your food web assignment page, on the second page, would you make your own food web?
What eats or what?
On the site, like, just scroll down. You can do it on paper if you want, but if you make a new page on there, you can make your food chain. I'm letting you have some creativity. If you want to just use labels, And names, that's fine. If you want to use clip art and stick those in to your food chain, that's fine also. But this is when you create from scratch. Do you have any questions?
How will I make multiple things coming off of one thing? Like for the sun, I was
Like for the web?
Yeah.
Well, you could make a picture. That's a good question. You could make a picture like they have, or you don't have the food chain with the arrows. You have a food web. Do you see how they made a food web? So they have like the sun up here, and then they have different animals around on the page. That's why I was giving you the option of either doing it online or...
Can I do it on like a piece of paper?
Yeah. If you would like to draw it. I know it's trickier with our different resources we have here. But you still have access to your... You still have access to your resources. Okay. And make sure you're labeling your elements of the food chain. So.
Yes. Primary consumer or
Yep. And let me know if you have any questions while you're... Remember your anchor chart. If you want to see what eats one of your animals, remember you can always look it up for ideas. Remember the What Eats website?
Would a hyena be a secondary consumer?
Can what?
Would a hyena be a secondary consumer?
I think they could be, yeah. Let's try this, What Eats website for, what did you have, a gazelle?
Yes, a gazelle.
That's weird.
It's spelled with an H. Gahzdell.
Huh. No?
Maybe there's no E. I don't think there's an E.
I think it's after the G. That's weird. I guess it's limited. That's why it's good to try this stuff out. I tried a bunch of different animals, but I didn't. Why don't we try some North American animals?
Like what?
What would be like a gazelle in North America?
Like a cow.
Well,
Or like a deer.
okay, there we go.
And they are eaten by?
Dog-like animals such as wolves and coyotes. Big cats such as cougars, jaguars, and lynx. So you can try. What about a coyote?
Coyote? Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then if we're using this, what eats a coyote?
Coyote. I think I have something in mind.
Yeah, there's some tertiary. That's a good way. Sometimes you can work backwards because it says like coyote will eat amphibians and reptiles, or the eggs of birds, ground nesting birds, or even birds themselves. So that could be your primary. Do you want to use that as one of your primary?
What is the largest canine cousin of coyotes? Click on the link.
I would think it would be a wolf, but let's see.
Let's see.
Yep, it's a wolf. So you could have the coyote eats maybe yeah, and I know secondary consumer seems to be a little trickier. A snake or a raccoon.
Oh, a
So
snake. Could go.
You could have a raccoon eat something.
I think a snake for the squirrel.
The snake eats the squirrel, and that's your secondary consumer. Cool. And then what might eat? Should we check our website and see what might eat a snake?
Oh, yes. We shall.
Hawks and eagles kill and eat snakes.
Oh.
So there you go. They're probably going to be your what?
Tertiary consumer.
Woohoo. And then let's think of some decomposers.
Bacteria.
You just like bacteria?
Yes.
Alright. Stick at least one decomposer in there. Alright. So in my original plan, I would have, if we had time, I would have everybody share their.
I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm not done.
Okay. I'm sorry to rush you.
I'm thinking. Wood. What's that?
Bark?
No.
Do you have a question?
Huh? It was about. I was gonna add another thing. It was
In your web?
vulture.
So you want a scavenger in there too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He gets the dead stuff before the bacteria. Nice. And then as we talked about in the video, vulture might eat a dead thing, and then vulture poop might go back and be fertilizer for a producer.
Which is why I put a food chain for bacteria.
Okay, why don't you tell me about your food chain now? Since I'm
Alright,
doing
so
this.
we've got the sun, and it provides for the grass and the oak. The oak provides for the squirrel, the primary consumer. The grass, which is the producer, provides for the deer. The squirrel provides for the snake, which is the secondary consumer. The deer provides for the coyote, which is the secondary consumer as well, which provides for the wolf, which is the tertiary consumer. The snake provides for the eagle, which is also the tertiary consumer. And the eagle and the wolf provide for bacteria, which is the decomposer. And they also provide for the vulture, who also provides for bacteria.
Yeah, he's a scavenger, but he's also a consumer, right? I like it. And then what happened right at the beginning, before we even got to the producers?
The sun.
The sun's energy was kind of going back
And
around
everything
again.
provides bacteria, and then bacteria provides to the producers.
Nice. I really like it. We thought of some different animals too. Do you think you would use that website, that What Eats website?
Yes, I would.
Like if you were doing this?
I might
Okay.
recommend that to my teacher.
Yeah, I might say something to Mrs.
Mackie.
Mackey about that if she ever does it again. That's a good online, and she's doing all online this year, so that's a good online resource. All right. Well, thank you, Miss Aurora. I appreciate your assistance and your work.